and let us all do we can to build a better future.
We now have a group of landlords that are asking the courts to lift the CDC's extension of the eviction moratorium. And what they are noting is that President Biden himself has used language indicating that he's not entirely sure that this is going to be allowed to stand. And furthermore, you've even got like the Washington Post here, which, I mean, granted, they're, you know, neoliberal, centrist, whatever you want to call them, but usually they at least give the impression of being empathetic to people and their housing rights, but their editorial board has basically said this is probably illegal, almost certainly illegal, they're saying at this point. And my response to this is this could have been addressed a long time ago. And I don't know how many times I've said on this show, I am predicting a great housing scoop. When we, basically people, first of all, get tired of this not knowing from 1 month to the next whether they are going to be able to stay in their homes, if they are property homeowners or landlords, not knowing if they're going to be able to hang on to their property. At this point, we've got landlords and tenants at each other's throats at this point, and in some cases, these are not situations where you have a slumlord who's trying to exploit tenants. You're talking about, again, about 50% of landlords in this country are what they call mom and pop. They may have a few units. They're doing this to shore up their retirement. And again, I'm a person who absolutely believes that housing is a right. I would like to see us move beyond this kind of renter system and move to cooperative housing where people want to rent. They're renting from a cooperative, not from a private owner. But the reality is that nobody has taken care of this problem. Eventually, the rent is going to be due. The mortgage is going to be due. You're going to have landlords who are eventually able to evict a tenant, maybe a troublesome tenant who will come in, find a destroyed property, and will not have the financial means to pick up the pieces, who maybe feel forced to sell to a real estate developer or a large corporation that is in the business of converting homes and apartments into rental housing. And these organizations are often run by hedge funds.
Yep.
They're not even in the business of housing. They're in the business of getting people to invest. This could have been managed. All of this could have been managed. And I think they're going to push this and push this and push this, but eventually people are going to be that much more behind.
Yeah.
You know, there's one thing we got to remember, too, is that, again, you brought up a very good point. All this could have been done months ago. Shout out to Max Blumenthal and Frank Analysis, who were there when Cori Bush and AOC were basically doing just, I guess, theater. Political theater, sitting and sleeping in front of the Capitol building. But whereas as soon as they left, any activists that were still there were treated harshly by the Capitol Police. There's videos right now showing on social media where, again, activists who were there were basically giving their testimony how there was a big difference between the police treatment when AOC and Cori Bush were there to when they finally decided to up and leave. And now we're seeing also trending on social media not video clips, but photos of AOC and the Democrats, doing a little fundraiser off their little sitting on the steps. This could have been avoided. AOC and Cori Bush said in that little live stream that they had to run to the chambers. Why weren't they there in the first place to raise the ruckus? Why weren't they there months ago screaming off their heads about how, hey, we got to do something about this to make sure the people are not kicked out of their homes and apartments. This is all political theater, and what the Democrats are going to use from what the little grandstanding that they did, they're going to use that for the 2022 midterm election cycle. Now, I know what some people will say. Well, Kit, what about the GOP? Are you helping out the GOP? No, we know what the Republican establishment's about. Both parties are in on this game. And as soon as diehard Democratic voters get it and diehard Republican voters get it, that the two-party system doesn't care about you, maybe then we could start focusing on doing real things, like fighting for Medicare for all, like doing a general strike, and so much more. This could have been avoided.
UBI
could
have done this. If everybody had gotten $2,000 a month, this could have been avoided. There were dozens of things that could have happened at this point. And I cannot imagine. I mean, I am one of the fortunate people that I always worked from home. I was able to keep my job, and there were some bumps here and there, but I was able to do that and keep working. That I've got a great landlord. But the reality is that a lot of people were not in that kind of position. Many people, for example, had to quit their jobs because their daycare centers closed down.
Yeah.
And there was nobody to take care of their kids. The schools were closed down. New York Times just ran a story about how there are a lot of people who would like to go back to work, but that they can't find anybody to take care of their children. This could have been avoided, and I think we're going to be looking at a nightmare scenario. Now, what I am going to say to you all is this, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, and you need to tell your friends. Very often, who you are dealing with when you are, like, for example, if you own property, whether it's just you're a homeowner or whether you are a landlord, keep in mind that your mortgage servicer is usually not your mortgage company. It's a separate business. Mortgage servicers do not have a lot of incentives to work with you because they run on very thin margins. They're not the ones that are holding the note. All right? They're just servicing that. So you've got to be proactive. You've got to be contacting the servicer. You need to be getting names and employee ID, badge numbers, and keeping a record of all your conversations, because we know from what happened back in 2008 that a lot of the servicers deliberately mislaid paperwork. They lost paperwork, and people lost their homes and their properties in that way. If you are renting, you need to be getting in touch with local homelessness prevention agencies, your local tenant unions that can help you work with your landlord or give you a plan for dealing with this situation. I'm sorry, I know this is an anxious time, and I know that for many people, anxiety means you go into fetal position. That's the one thing that's going to cause you to lose your home at this point. This is serious, and I think this is disgraceful.
Agreed.
So I think everyone already said a lot of really good stuff. I think I would simply add to this is that it's, as always, the process is that whether you're a renter or you're a small-time landlord, a mom-and-pop landlord, regardless of how many, the winners are going to be the people that are running with the hedge funds, because they can afford and they have the pockets to make this up. Because all they're going to say is they don't care if they make or lose money right now. They just tell their investors, keep giving us money. Eventually, you're going to make bank. And Lainey has already talked about on previous shows how 2008 was this great trial period to put this all into place. And I don't think there's been a time ever before that so many hedge funds are about to make so much money off of so many Americans, both renting out their space and renting space, losing that space. Just put your mind in someone who is all their life. They bought a house back when houses were cheap in the 60s or 70s. They grew up there. They paid off the house. Now they just have to pay property taxes or whatever. They're retired. They're on Social Security. They don't really have that much in savings. That person is screwed if they don't have a tenant that can help pay their property taxes. So everyone is screwed except the people who are politically connected. I think that might even be a better way for us to all phrase this. It's, as always in America, the little guy is going to get curb stomped sometime in the near future, and the wealthy are going to make out like bandits from the process.
And it's not even just going to be, it's also going to be the middle-sized guy there as well, because I can see there are smaller property management companies or people who may own a few units. They're doing okay, but none of them anticipated all of this and losing everything at once. And the other thing, again, I have talked about some stories about where you have landlord-tenant conflicts. In some cases, tenants who are not just broke but are very troublesome and who are causing damage to property and engaging in threatening behavior, you're going to potentially have a lot of small-time property owners and landlords, or even mid-sized ones, who are going to say, we're getting out of this business entirely. And they're going to want to sell, and they're going to want to sell fast, and that's going to accelerate the transfer of land holdings.
Yeah. There's only one direction the money's flowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a serious situation that could have been avoided. That's all I have to say at this point. We're all gonna be keeping our eye on this story. Mm-hmm. I know we're all gonna be keeping an eye on this story, but it's a train wreck.